Welcome to Messy Christian Mamas. We are three Christian moms with a progressive mindset and loving hearts and minds. We are imperfect humans, but we're all loved in God's sight. At some point, we've all felt like the church and Christianity may not have been for us, but God isn't looking for perfection. He's just looking for you.
We are not experts in Christian theology, and we do not represent any particular Christian faith or church. We are simply here to be authentic, and we hope you join us on this journey.
Welcome back to Messy Christian Mamas. We're so glad you can join us today. This is Kendra.
This is Kaylee.
And this is Ashley.
And we are talking about, drumroll,
Dating!
So, quickly, my dating life is obviously pretty non-existent these days. I would say, I love the idea of continuing to date your spouse, but I don't know that that's really happening in my relationship necessarily.
You guys don't have date nights?
We very seldom have date nights.
So y'all went out for your anniversary.
Yep.
And yeah, because even this past weekend when you went out of town, it's like for work. So
And she was there.
and she was there. Very true.
You know, we don't live close to family, and we've been really reined in on the expenses too, so haven't been going out very much. So yeah, I think now that we have a little more flexibility with her being able to be home for a little bit of time, I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
Nice.
We do things like we'll go to Costco alone together or something like that, just to kind of
Costco
get away,
date
which
night.
is nice.
Yeah.
Free food.
Just to get a little bit of time alone.
Get some exercise in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a great date.
For sure. So, dating, you two, how does that apply to you? What's your current dating situation?
Oh boy. Not good.
Married, divorced, dating?
Well, I'm back on the apps.
Oh, are you?
I only ever do Facebook dating. So I kind of go back and forth, just depending on how busy my life is. So yeah, I've been back at working at it again.
Is that because it's the safest one? What is the reason
I'm
you
just
choose that one?
lazy.
It's free.
It's free. I go to Facebook anyway. I feel like Facebook knows everything about me.
Yeah.
So
Their algorithm's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay.
Actually.
the problem I have with it though is that in my profile, it'll show me guys that have the same thing in my profile. I'm like, I don't want to date myself.
Yeah.
I want to date somebody
You're
else.
a 95%
That's funny.
match, and I'm like, I can't stand myself most days. I don't want to date me. Me had to go to therapy for that. I don't want to do that. No. I was doing Facebook dating. I think it's because it is so easy to just go on Facebook and then go in there and it tells you when someone matches with you and it's completely free, which is nice. But I haven't been back on them. I went on that one yesterday just because I was like, I'll do some research for this episode, and then after I did my research, I was like, yeah, no, now I know why I'm not on
Right.
apps and dating.
I feel like you have to be in such a solid place in your life to not get super frustrated by them. Even though it's made like a game. You know, it's like a gamified thing of the swiping and all that, and you get this endorphin rush when someone likes you or whatever.
Yeah.
But it gets so frustrating.
Sure.
Well, I just realized that so part of the problem I have is because for 15 years of my life I had made men and sex and dating such the top priority, and that's where my addictions came from and everything. So when I shifted priorities away from all of that, my life started going easier. Weirdly enough. And so every good relationship I've had has always stemmed out of a natural occurrence. So I either had a friendship with that person, or I worked with that person,
Right.
or we had a mutual friend in common. My ex was I think the one guy I met on a date. We met on Match, and we were together for 2 years, but that was very rare. I haven't had good experiences with the dating apps since then, and I think for me it's because if you're on a dating app, you're obviously looking for someone to have a relationship with. I understand that people are on there to do hookups and stuff but that's what Tinder and Grindr and all those apps are for. But when you go on an app and you start putting yourself out there, you're like, to me, you're saying, like, okay, I want a relationship with someone that I'm willing to make a priority, and, like, I'm not willing to do that. Like, I'm not willing to shift my priorities around right now. So then that's when I realized why the apps and I were not getting along, because I was going on there and being accused, like, well, why are you on here if you don't know what you want? I'm like, that's a great point. Like, because I'm supposed to be. Like, I'm 39 and single, like, and people are like, well, why aren't you dating? And I'm like, well, I guess I can. And then I dated I went on a couple of dates a few months ago, and I realized that, like, my priorities shift. Well, like, I'm not healed. I don't think I'm healed enough. Because my priorities shifted so quickly back to what they used to be. Of, like, did this boy like me? Does this man like me? Does he find me attractive? Like, when am I going to see him again? Why isn't he texting me back? And I was like, this is so dumb. Like, you've come so far from this.
Yeah.
So I just don't think I'm in a place where I can shift my priorities around. So that's why I don't think dating apps work for me.
Well, I absolutely agree that, like, my priorities have shifted so much, and, like, decentering men, and, like, I really put more into my relationships with family and friends, and it's really changed a lot. And so it's changed my evaluation process too, of, like, who I'm gonna allow into my life, and that's why it gets frustrating because you go through so many people. They're like, there's got to be somebody out there that is gonna fit into my life. However, I will say I've been on quite a few dates from people from Facebook dating, and they've all been, like, awesome people. I haven't had a bad date yet. Like, they've all been really friendly people. A lot of them I would stay friends with if that was the goal, but I mean, it's not. So, but I haven't met anyone yet in person. But I do have a stringent process before I go to meet somebody in person. So
quick question. Any of the apps that you guys do not like that you've tried?
Well, Tinder was just made for bad decisions.
Okay.
Like, I feel like that should be their tagline. You want to make a bad decision tonight, use us.
Yeah.
However, my cousin's been in, like, 3 long-term relationships from Tinder.
I don't know how she does it. I don't know.
My sister has some magic.
My sister and Josh, her husband, they met on Plenty of Fish, and that was, like, used to be, like, one of those as well. And we just always laughed at him because we were like, you guys managed to be one of the only success stories from that app. But yeah, like, I just, and a lot of them are expensive. And I guess, like, that's good because you're obviously going to weed out the people that are just, like, that aren't taking it seriously and, are just kind of looking for a very casual thing. So if you're, like, seriously, like, looking for someone and, like, wanting to be in a relationship, then I guess there's, like, ones like Match.com and Bumble and Hinge, and where you, like, pay a little bit extra. That makes sense, but like I said, Facebook dating is, like, I think it's the way to go. Plus, it also, the thing I like about Facebook dating,
you can see who they're friends with.
Is
mutual friends.
With.
Yeah.
So if you have mutual friends, like, to me, I'm like, okay, well, now I can contact this person to be like, are they a psychopath?
Right. Or if it's a friend that I really think a lot of, I'm like, oh, well, if they're friends with this person, they've got to be a pretty stand-up person,
Yeah.
I had to, when I was doing marketing, living in LA, I worked for an agency, and we worked with a dating app that had a musical sounding name, and I had to sign up for all of these different dating apps, which was very weird being a married person, just to, like, see how they work, and because I had no idea. I hadn't dated in so long. But yeah, to do, like, market research, and I still every once in a while get things from them. This is so wrong.
Well, it's so funny, like, not being married for 60 or 13 years and however long it was. Anyway, and not dating and not ever being on the apps, you know, and then coming out of that and going on the apps. I understand so much more about culture now. I think it's really affecting our culture a lot, which is like fascinating.
1 in 3 marriages start as an online introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's so crazy to think about that in our lifetime we didn't have the internet. And within 20 years, the entire, like, it has shifted so much to now that 1/3 of all marriages start with an online presence. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. Like, that's so insane. But I also think with that, like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's also very cold. Like, the apps to me are very are very cold.
That's what I was about to say. That's what's so frustrating is the conversations that happen in the app over and over again. How was your day?
Which is why I'm telling you, what Nikki does is the way to go. Has her little notes that she has all written out with her backstory and what she's looking for and her do's and don'ts, and she just, drops it as a file in the conversation, and then once the guy is done reading it, he can opt yes or opt no, and she's like, well, I don't have to repeat anything.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it makes sense because it does get really old.
I wonder if the people actually read it.
Over again. She has questions. She was built
Okay.
in questions. Like, so they say yes, like they've read it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
She'll there's certain things, and one of them will be like false, and then just to try to catch them out. And she's got a couple of them. But
That's funny. I always if someone asks me something that's in my profile, I immediately block them. Like, what do you do? I'm like, it's in my profile. I teach music technology. Where are you from? I'm from Peachtree City. It's in my profile. Block.
exactly.
Lazy. So lazy. So, how is your dating mindset different now than it was when you were in your 20s?
Oh, I think we
So
said
much
that about
healthier.
priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember too, because I didn't get married until I was 30. And so I was really just feeling the pressure. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a big family. And I really felt the pressure of getting that done quickly. And so
Lee succeeded.
I did.
Overachiever.
Right. But I think that might have led to some unhealthy choices. And I think that happens with a lot of girls that you think that you've got this timeline and you've got to get it done.
I think that is one of the healthier shifts that I have seen over the last probably decade to 15 years is how there does seem to be less pressure on girls to get married right out of high school or to marry their high school sweetheart and marry their college sweetheart. Like, it does seem to be, especially in these more suburban, urban areas, it does seem to be much more you need to go to school, you need to have a life, you need to establish who you are. And so with this average age of marriage, creeping up, to late 20s and 30s, I'm like, that's healthier to me. Like, I feel like you need to know yourself before you tie yourself to someone else.
So 50 would be.
I honestly think that I'll be a late bride. Like, I think I'll be a midlife bride. Like, if I'm gonna get married, I think it'll be in my 50s because right now, I have a 10-year-old daughter who is watching me like a hawk, and for me, it's easier to just tell her what a good relationship is than to show her because I'm not great at relationships. So I don't want her to have this, to see me doing things and be like, well, mom did it. So I think I just avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
And so that I can tell her what and I have good examples for her set up in the family. But I think once she's in school and she's much more independent and, my part in everything has kind of died down. We're so overscheduled right now.
Right. When is there time?
I don't have time to date.
That's what I'm running into now when I set up dates with people. I'm like, okay, I'm free in 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. I'm or it's spontaneous. Dad said he'd pick up my daughter from theater. I have an hour right now. Do you want to go get coffee? It's one or the other. I have to make either 2 weeks in advance.
Why don't do last minute dates?
I'm the queen of last minute.
Yeah, stop doing that.
could not date each other.
I am so,
No, we couldn't.
We're not compatible at all. But I think once my role in her life dies down some, and I get obviously more healed and better at prioritizing things, that I'll be able to shift focus onto that and maybe meet someone who I want to spend the latter years with, but I don't miss it.
Yeah. I was gonna say a couple of things. The scheduling thing, that's a great way of weeding people out though, that if they can't wait or they get offended by that or something, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, just gotta be patient. You're an adult. And the other thing is that I feel like this time around I have such a stronger foundation in who I am and giving myself value and not trying to get value from somebody else. If somebody else telling me I'm pretty or someone else telling me they like me, that I already know that I'm great. And I don't mean to be vain or, anything about that, but it's just, but it's just being, having a strong self-esteem this time.
Yeah, having some self-worth. I think it's good.
Right.
It's a very good thing.
Right.
So in your earlier dating years, like the goal was very much, at least for me, was very much like getting married. Like who's a long-term person? How can I find that partner? Now, do you guys still have goals for dating?
Yeah.
Are they just different?
All right, goals. So, Kaylee, you want to go first?
No, because I'm yelling at someone.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, my goal now is again to have a long-term committed relationship.
It is. Okay.
I do not necessarily have the goal of getting married again.
Yeah.
I'd be okay of having a long-term committed relationship, and I don't really even know if I have a goal of moving in together with someone. I'm not really to that part yet.
Yeah.
You know, for the longest time I said I was never going to date again, and then I changed my mind all of a sudden. So who knows? I might change my mind.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So we'll move on because Kaylee's yelling at somebody through her phone, through her fingers. So what do you consider a good date?
Okay, so a good date would be good conversation. That's first.
Okay.
Then some.
And what is good conversation? Like it's just flowing?
Yeah, and like some back and forth, and so it's not just you sitting there listening, and it's not you doing all the talking and having to like pull teeth, asking questions. It just like kind of bounces back and forth, which I just feel like should be common sense, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And then some physical chemistry, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything sexual. It's just that, like,
Attraction.
Yeah, some sort of physical attraction for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you consider a bad date?
So a bad,
Like not mediocre, but like what's?
I don't know, because I haven't really had the bad dates yet.
Oh, that's good.
I think. Go ahead, Kaylee. Tell us about a bad date.
Jesus.
I mean, I would imagine a bad date would be that you had nothing to talk about, or they turned out to be a total
killer.
jerk. But like I said, I have such like a stringent process of like weeding people out before they get to that point that I just think that I don't get to that point.
Okay, what's your process?
Okay, so I follow the burned haystack dating method, and yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get some criticism from any guy that listens to this, but it's a method where there are just certain like guidelines you go through. So first of all, like in profile. So if anyone mentions things like directives, like I want you to be this and this and this and this and this, instead of talking about themselves. So you just automatically block that person.
List.
And
That happens?
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, and sometimes it's set up like sometimes it's okay. Like sometimes I'll put like I'm looking for someone who puts family first, or like it's is willing to join me on this. Like sometimes they're set up in a good way, and you're just like, okay, you can kind of see what their priorities are. But like other times they're like, I'm looking for someone who is going to be home every night making dinner, and you're just kind of like, why would you put that out there in public?
And then like Ashley guidelines, I also, instead of swiping left, you block all the way. So that means that the algorithm won't keep showing you the same people over and over again. Because if you swipe left, you keep seeing the same people. But even if you block them, they can delete the account and come back anyway. But you have a better chance.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's one of them. Then some of Ashley's guidelines is like if they're too young or too old,
yes.
or if
What's too young?
Okay, depending on the rest of their profile, I'll go as young as like 36.
Oh, that seems very fair.
Yeah, and depending on their profile, I'll go as old as like 57.
Okay.
Yeah, but if there's something else that's like just really wrong with their profile, then don't go that wide.
Like 26-year-olds for you.
No, thank you. That is so disturbing. So disturbing.
How much energy that would take? Oh my god!
Right.
I feel like dating a golden retriever.
Right.
So much training involved. Sounds exhausting.
Yeah. And then like more guidelines for me, like I don't necessarily always stick with this, but I look for someone who has a college degree or grad school degree. Someone who is spiritual. If they're atheist, I block them. Agnostic is okay. I prefer if people have kids, but it's okay if they don't. But basically, if they put anything in their bio that's just like outright, you can just kind of tell they're a jerk. Then like block them that way. If they leave their profile blank, then I will left swipe that, but I won't block it. Okay, so anyway, then back to Burned Haystack. So once you match with somebody and you start talking inside the app, like this is where you really start narrowing it down. So if they don't ask you anything about you, and you don't start it, you don't start the conversation.
Yeah.
Like you can have some like back and forth about how's your day? Great. How's you? Great. But if they don't say anything from your profile, then you block them. And then if they don't ask you out within whatever time frame you set for yourself, for me it's about a week to 2 weeks. If they don't ask me out in 2 weeks, then I block them. If they just want to like talk back and forth and be a pen pal, then you block them, because that's not the goal. The goal is to meet and go on a date. Trying to think what else. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is that women are often charged with the emotional labor in relationships. So you're trying to find somebody that is invested in the process, that will actually read your profile and it has energy and intention towards seeking you.
Yeah.
And not just there for whatever. Yeah.
It sounds like it's worked out pretty well for you.
It has. It's been really good. Now, I will say, I think if you follow the Burned Haystack method, like exclusively, I think you will never go on a date.
Okay.
So you have to
A
like
little bit of leeway.
have some.
Liberally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, if someone immediately messages me something about my body,
Oh yes, that's one of them.
I
Yeah.
will immediately be like, no.
Yeah.
Because we're not in a bar. Like if you came up to me in a bar and said, like, oh, you have such pretty eyes, or I like, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, okay, you saw me from across the room, and you but you read my profile. There's other things there, and I purposely like my profile picture purposely isn't of my entire body. It's like me in a t-shirt from like chest up and not showing any of the girls, and just like my face, because I don't want.
Don't want that.
Because that was a big problem when I was, dating in my teens and 20s, is because I've always been a larger girl. You have men out there that fetishize that, and they look for that on the apps and everything, and I'm like, no, like, I don't want you to just be with me because I'm this size or I'm this weight, because then if I fluctuate, if I lose weight and you get mad about that, like, that's... then we got some major problems. Like, we got some major issues. So anyone who just immediately, or if they say something like just smarmy, like anything that I would immediately just be like cringe in real life, if they said it as the opening for their conversation.
Right. I try to think about, what if someone walked up to me in the grocery store and said that? What would I do?
I'd be like,
I'd walk away. Right.
this is not the gas station parking lot. You cannot talk to me that way.
No. Also, people ask about my kids too early. If it's like the second question they ask me, how many kids or how old are they, whatever, then block immediately.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
And that's a goal too, that like I will not introduce my kids to anyone that I date for at least 6 months, probably a year.
Yeah.
Because I can take a heartache, but they can't. I'm not going to put that on them. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to make sure I wholly trust this person too before I introduce them into my kids' lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would introduce Charlie to anyone until I realized that like it was serious enough to where this person was going to become a third party in our family. Until like I've established that they're here for longer and it's more serious than just a casual relationship. Like there's no reason for her to meet a friends with benefit or a
sure.
casual relationship. There's no reason for that. So if that's how the relationship started and then it became something more, then obviously then I've spent enough time with this person to realize that I can trust this person around my kid and bring it up. But it wouldn't be. She knows that I've gone on dates and stuff like that. She'll ask me about them every once in a while, and I just tell her, it's just not important to me right now. I have other things that I need to focus on, and really stress that, you know, like my priority is you and, you know, our family and my friends and my work, and, you know, let her know that like my life isn't revolving around dating around a man, because, you know, she's getting to that point where she's starting to look at boys, and she's starting to be like, oh, that boy's cute, or, you know, so I need to start establishing now that like you are a whole person without the attention of the opposite sex or the same sex, and you're enough. Like, you don't need to be in a relationship. Yeah, you don't need to be in a relationship in order to matter. You know, if you have a strong family and strong friends and a strong self-worth and a strong faith, like, that's enough. Like, anything on top of that is just icing. Like, it's just extra. Like, but it's not, you're a complete person. Like, there isn't, you know, there are couples, like, I look at my parents that are very much a puzzle piece to each other, and obviously they connected and clicked in a way that, you know, you don't see very often anymore. But, like, if God forbid anything was to happen to either one of them, they would be okay.
Okay, Haley, circling back, what does a bad date look like?
I think, you know, if they walk into the room and you just immediately just feel a little on edge because their eyes aren't looking at you in the eye, and they're just focused on parts of you that they don't need to be focused on. If they only talk about themselves or their exes and why their exes are terrible people. I've had some bad exes, but like, I'm not gonna bring that up on
the first date. Yeah, I don't like when people bring it up on first date either.
I'm not gonna bring it up in conversation unless someone, like one of them, unless I'm triggered by something, and then be like, okay, this is why I'm triggered by this, because this happened. Or if they ask me, like, you know, oh, what's something that you couldn't stand about your ex, because they're trying to like make sure that they don't have that same triggering. Just, like, I can kind of get that, but like, I went on one date and he was divorced, and he just bashed his ex-wife the entire time. And then, funny enough, like 3 months later, they got back together. So I was like,
okay. So he just like wasn't over her.
Yeah.
No. I was a stopgap.
Do you have any weird dating stories you'd like to share? Be willing to share?
I'm trying to think.
I think back to my 20s. There's gotta be some.
I've left dates. I've like dashed.
Oh, really?
Like, I've pulled the whole, like, I've gotten like a friend to call me. They're like, oh no. It's like, that can't, like, I don't see how anyone can get away with that anymore. I guess now that we're moms, we can kind of get away with it. Just be like, oh, something happened with my kid, I gotta go. We're like, can't question that. But like, you, like, anytime you get a phone call and a date and the person's like, oh no, and I'm like, just say you don't want to be here. Like, like now I would be like, if I'm not enjoying myself, I'd be like, you know what, I think we should just cut this off early and go home, because this is a waste of time.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely like have left like mid-dinner, mid-movie.
Yeah.
Just not answered my phone. Ghosted.
So what does the Bible say about dating? Really not a lot. Not anything specifically. 0 things specifically.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Courting is not mentioned in the Bible even, which obviously that's not something that any of us are into. And
Well, I don't want to sound really ignorant, but what was it, arranged marriages?
I think a lot of them were.
Sure, but really the conversation in the Bible about relationships is really just focused on marriage. Mm-hmm. And so there isn't really a lot of conversation. I can't think of any. I was looking stuff up. There wasn't anything I came across. So I didn't find anything that the Bible says about dating. It's really more about marriage. And in Paul's case, and this is from 1 Corinthians, and that's a book that is largely accepted to have been authored by Paul. So Paul actually said this, supposedly. He thinks that you should avoid it altogether, marriage, so that you aren't distracted from your relationship with God. And he says, but I say to the unmarried and to the widows that as a practical matter, it is good if they remain single and entirely devoted to the Lord as I am. But if they do not have sufficient self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because Lord knows if you get married, then
you
you're
can't
not
get married
with passion.
Passion is gone. That's so funny.
I thought Paul was married.
He was.
Oh, so that was like a diss track.
But there's
I'm thinking his wife, when his name changed from Saul to Paul, she was like, you know what?
well, there's suspicions.
There's other Sanhedrin that can be with.
There's suspicions when Paul talks about his affliction in the Bible that could have been his sexuality. Some say so.
Yeah.
There could have been a reason why he was no longer married, or she could have passed away. We don't have any conclusion to that, actually. So let's get into a fun story. So this post comes from the AITAH subreddit, and it says, "Am I the asshole for not pursuing a relationship with a Christian man who wants to date around despite a great first date?" So here we go. Hey everyone, I, 21 female, very young, recently had a dilemma after a promising first date, and I could really use some advice. I met this guy, let's call him John, on the Christian dating app Upward. We hit it off really well, and our date went smoothly. Conversation flowed, and we seemed to have a lot in common, especially in terms of our faith. However, during the date, John mentioned that he typically takes 5 to 6 months before making things official with someone, and he believes in dating around during that time. While I respect his approach to relationships as a Christian woman, I value commitment and exclusivity. I had a great time with John, and he seems like a genuinely nice guy, but I can't help but feel conflicted about his approach to dating. On one hand, I appreciate his honesty and understand that everyone has their own timeline for relationships. On the other hand, I worry that our differing views on commitment could lead to heartache down the line. So Reddit, am I in the wrong for not wanting to pursue a relationship with John despite our great first date and his upfront communication about his dating style? I appreciate any insights or advice you have to offer.
I think she's putting a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I found that people are they're just really different with that, and I think you just got to get right with like what you want. And it's not right or wrong, though. I think it's totally okay to date around if you want.
Personal choice.
And it's also totally okay if you don't want to date around, if you want to be with just one person. But you have to like figure out yourself like what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any moral judgment on the other person.
Yeah, you continue if you're going to continue having a conversation with man and go out and everything's casual and he's being casual with other people, then that's one thing. But as soon as desires and passions and sex gets involved, then it gets really messy.
Yeah.
And so you can talk to when you're just talking to someone, then there is no commitment there. There is no tie there. But as soon as you go another level in, then that's when heartbreak can happen, and that's when it can get kind of dangerous. So but I think just like right after our first date, and she's like, I just don't know. And I'm like, well, you're 21. Your frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. So that's why you don't know yet.
Well, and I've had this conversation with some friends that had the same sort of mindset. And I was just basically said, like, this person doesn't owe you anything.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't like it, you can move on and just go to somebody else. But they don't owe you anything. They don't owe you commitment if that's not what they're seeking right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, if you, like, put it on the other hand, like, if she turned around and she goes, I'm 21... and I'm just figuring out who I am, so I want to date a few people, and try to explore kind of what I'm looking for in a relationship. And this man then turned around and said, well, I don't know if I'm okay with a woman. Like, would you then turn around and blame him for being judgmental? Or is he just being, true to who he is? If that's how she feels, then great. But you're 21. And if it was a great first date, then I feel like it at least deserves a follow-up. At least deserves a conversation.
Well, and what a wonderful guy to communicate that and be so upfront about it.
Yeah,
right
trying
from
to
the
lead her
jump.
along.
Yeah, how old is he? That's the other thing.
Yeah, I don't think it says. I don't think she revealed that anywhere.
Because a 21-year-old...
42.
Yeah, a 21-year-old saying that is one thing. A 41-year-old saying that to a 21-year-old.
I like to date around.
It's a little different.
So this is the top comment here. It says, no, and that's not even very normal for a non-Christian guy. Dating multiple women for a short amount of time and becoming exclusive with the one you click with is best. The best is more normal. What happens when you have been dating 5 to 6 months and he goes on a date on that last month with someone who he wants to explore with more, and that 5 to 6 months waiting for exclusivity turns into a year? When does it end? The fact he said that's what he does is fine and all, but it's totally normal not to be cool with it. What I will say, however, is probably just ghost him. You don't have to tell him your reasoning since it was just a first date. You don't want him hiding his dating plans from future women who may not like that either.
So yeah, there's just two camps, and I think it's totally fine. It's fine if you want to date one person kind of person.
That person seems really toxic.
Really harsh.
But yeah, I agree. I think this guy sounds pretty cool that he revealed that.
Well, that
The
to me that would
communication was
intrigue
solid.
me.
Yeah, like here's my expectations of what's happening right now. Like, that's really great.
But also, I'm also a very competitive person. So then I would be like,
Let me see their pictures.
let me become the head one. Let me become the
Right.
like number one, like the head wife. Like let me like I'd be super competitive. Like I'd be like, so what did she do with Stacy? Oh, okay, cool. Well, this is what I got. Like this is why it's unhealthy
Yeah.
for me to date.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I do think, like, I have been in some situations like that where I wanted to be more exclusive and the other person wanted to keep dating. And I said, okay, well, then this is not for me because I'm to the
Yeah.
point where I want to be exclusive. So, and that was that.
I remember when you did that.
Yep.
You were very.
we were so blown away.
You
We
were so
proud.
convicted about it. Like, even though
Right.
you cared about that person, you wanted to
Yep.
make that exclusive. I was really proud of you for that.
Thanks.
So that's all we got for today. Any last words on dating, ladies?
Just
Be careful out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're totally okay by yourself.
Yeah.
I'm so happy, like, enjoying life single. And it's okay. It's fun to be coupled up, and it's also fun to be single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be careful and stick to your own convictions. Don't and go to people for advice that you trust have your best interests in heart. Like if you're wanting a serious relationship, then you need to go to your friends that are going to support that, not your friends that are going to be like, you need to be in your hoe face.
Yeah,
So,
friends will
like-
tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be with the friends that are going to be like, okay, I support you, and this is we're going to help you in this. Don't go to the friends that are that you are judging on making bad decisions, and then expect them to have great relationship
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Don't come to me for dating advice. Basically, is the end of that story.
Okay, so let's close out with a prayer. The Lord be with you.
And
Also with you.
Father, please help us to find the value and worthiness that you have given us as your children, Father, and not look outside of ourselves and outside of you for that value and that worth to know as we enter into any situations, whether they be long-term partners or people we're just meeting, that those are additions to what we already have, but they do not help create the whole of who we are, Father. Thank you for all that you've given us, the worth, the value that you've placed inside each one of us. We thank you and we praise your holy name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Messy Christian Mamas. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Until next time, embrace the mess, share the love, and shine your light bright, my friends.